And we are live with the Kansas City Chiefs 580 Sports Talk instant reaction post-game show. The Chiefs are back in the win column, and they've won the AFC West yet again. It was not the prettiest game, and hey, any win over the Bengals is a good one, so I think it's fair to say that as well. But the Chiefs pick up a 25-17 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Chiefs improved to 10-6. They are champions of the AFC West. Very least, they will get a home game in the wild card round of the playoffs. The Bengals now 8-8 out of the postseason for this year. Brendan Dzwierzynski, Dan Lucero here, wrapping this one up for you on New Year's Eve. Pretty good way to send out 2023, even if, again, it was not exactly what you would have hoped for. 7 scoring drives. Unfortunately, 6 of them were field goals. You would have liked a little bit more out of the offensive, finishing drives in this game. I thought the defense, as much as it sputtered early in the game, was absolutely sensational in the second half, which is really all you can hope for in a game like that. Your offense gave you enough of a chance. Defense kept you in it. What stood out to you, Dan, the most about this win? Is it the fact that they couldn't really finish drives, or is the fact that, hey, you beat a rival, finally got that important win, and now at least know a little bit of your destiny going into Week 18?
It was a very 2023 Chiefs game, wasn't it? I mean, they play all the hits. They're like a top 40 radio station at this point. They check every single box. Turnover leads to a score for the opponent. Check, did that. Stupid special teams play. Richie James took a punt out of his own end zone. We can laugh about it now because that's honestly one of the funniest things I've seen in an NFL game. He did that. We had penalties, pre-snap penalties that were drive killers. We had struggles in the red zone. Everything that the Chiefs have been all season, they were that again in this game. But they were good enough to overcome it this time. And why were they good enough to overcome it? Number one, they limited the mistakes. After the Mahomes strip sack that led to the 17-7 deficit, Chiefs didn't turn it over again, remained -1 in the turnover department. The other thing they did, took a profit, took points, took the field goals. Yes, frustrating that they could not finish drives, but they were in scoring position and understood that field goals could win them this football game, because we have been talking about it, and I specifically said it on Friday's edition of 580 Sports Talk. The Chiefs need to understand what their identity is. Their identity is they're a team that's going to go as far as their defense will take them. And if you're a team that is a defensive first, defensive-minded football team, what are the things you have to do? You have to cash in your scoring opportunities. Chiefs didn't do that to the best of their ability, but Harrison Butker 6 for 6 on field goals. You have to be able to run the ball and control the ball. And Isaiah Pacheco was spectacular for the better part of tonight. I think he's one of his best games of the season, if not his best game of the season. And coming out of concussion protocol too, that was such a big time effort from Isaiah Pacheco. And then in the fourth quarter, knowing that if all we need is a stop, our defense is going to go get us that stop. And that's exactly what the Chiefs defense did. The pass rush came alive on the final drive, buried Jake Browning. They got the stop on the 4th and 27, and the Chiefs now are division champs again. They can take a breath. They can rest some key players. They get a functional bye in Week 18, which is a big deal for them. And they did it all by finally getting to something like an identity that's going to work for them. If they're going to win another Lombardi trophy, it's going to be with games that look like this, where it might not always be pretty offensively, but it's enough offensively because they rode the back of their defense and because they didn't commit so many mistakes.
And that's been one of the big problems for this team throughout the year. It's that they just didn't do enough. Because with the defense as good, as you just pointed out, you can get by with your offense doing enough. And granted, that's a lot lower of a bar than we've normally expected from the Chiefs over the last half decade, but you have enough players defensively. Look at what that defense did in the back quarter, the back 2 possessions of that game. I mean, they were killing Browning. What was it? 4 out of 5 dropbacks to end the game that he ended up getting sacked on, or 4 of the last 6 overall. I mean, they were just teeing off on him. Granted, quarterbacks are also, or sacks are also a quarterback stat, and he looked like KU Jake Heaps out there, having absolutely no idea where pressure was coming from or the fact that he didn't have time. But Karlaftis was getting back there. Jones, Dan, I mean, you take your pick. Charles Amena, who I thought had a strong game when he wasn't trying to fight his own teammates. Like, it was overall a very strong effort from the defense, and they came up and made the big plays when they needed to at the end of the game. Offensively, I'm right there with you when it comes to who made the biggest impact, and you called it out as a player who was going to make a big impact in this game. Run the rock, I believe that was the phrasing you used in your keys to the game Friday on 580 Sports Talk. It's Isaiah Pacheco. And you know, we always say he runs angry. He runs like he looks like he's mad at the ground. We've got a new one. I think this is my new favorite way to describe how Isaiah Pacheco runs. This is from Jordan Lewis, who is a defensive back for the Dallas Cowboys, who won their game on Saturday. He was watching the Chiefs today, and he said, and we've got the clip for you here, Pacheco run like he bite people, which I've never considered that phrasing before, but it's true. That's 100% true. I don't really know how to describe why that makes sense, but it really does. But that's the kind of thing, it's talked about a little bit more maybe in college and certainly more at the high school levels, running the ball travels and defense travels and things like that. But it's true to a degree in the NFL as well. And I'm not saying, you only want Patrick Mahomes throwing 12 times in a playoff game. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think there is value in saying number 10 is one of your best offensive skill position players right now. He's top 3, and the drop off after those 3, whichever order you want to put him in, is just massive. It's still Kelsey, even though he didn't do a ton in this game, relatively speaking. Rashee Rice, who, by the way, set a new career high in yards today, which was awesome. He was great in the game. And it's Isaiah Pacheco. Those are the 3 guys you've got to lean into. You steer into those guys however long you are in the postseason, however long you are alive this year. I said it half jokingly, half seriously on Twitter about Rashee Rice. He should be getting 20 targets a game come the postseason because look who's around him. Like, MVS is one of the worst players in the NFL this year.
He stinks, brother. He's so bad.
As Matt Verderam pointed out on Twitter, who we'll talk to probably on Tuesday this week on 580 Sports Talk, he then was making a comment like, hey, you should have thrown me a better ball. Dude, I've seen high schoolers regularly make better catches. Again, really not doing a whole lot to beat the accusations that the Kansas Jayhawks have better wide receivers than the Kansas City Chiefs, buddy. Like, get his... He stinks. He's not good. Get him off the field. Get the ball to Rice more. Run the ball up. Help. Throw the ball to Pacheco more. His one touchdown in this game was a passing touchdown. You can use him a little. He's not completely incompetent in the passing game. He's not like, rookie Adrian Peterson, who you couldn't do anything but do halfback dive to. At least it worked. But you can use Pacheco a little bit more. You got Kelsey, you got Rice. Lean into those guys. Felt like the offense did a little bit more of that today. And lo and behold, it ended up working out. There's no time like the present. This should have been figured out weeks ago. But at the very least, this is the time with a game like this, you should realize this is what works, and we're just going to keep riding it until it doesn't work anymore. Because frankly, you haven't been able to find that rhythm all year.
Yeah, and it did work. I think if they're going to win 4 more of these in January and February, this is probably what they're going to look like, where it might be in fits and starts on offense, but if they're able to run the ball effectively for the better part of 4 quarters, they're going to get themselves into better second and third down situations. And defensively, they can lean on that because it started rough for the defense, but they made the adjustment to what the Bengals were about, what they've kind of been about with Jake Browning as the quarterback, which has been a lot of underneath stuff, a lot to the tight ends, a lot to the running backs. Once they started taking that stuff away from Jake Browning, they made him really uncomfortable, and they kept him from being able to move the ball down the field the way he did effectively on their first 2 drives of the contest. Steve Spagnuolo's defenses have always been this. We shouldn't be surprised, right? Ever since he's been the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, second halves of games at their best. This is what they look like. This is what they look like. The Chiefs making the adjustment and limiting the other team. And the offense was able to pull ahead. This is their first fourth quarter comeback win of the season, technically, because they were down by a point at the 4-yard line for a third down when the fourth quarter got underway. So it's a comeback. It's a double-digit comeback, the thing that we have grown so accustomed to seeing the Chiefs make. But they didn't do it today because the offense was spectacular. They did it because the offense was good enough and the defense took over. And that's just kind of what this is. One other thing I want to point out about the Chiefs offense, it was great to see the big play and the deep shot come back into the offense today. Rashee Rice caught a big one over the top. Justin Watson had the 41-yard completion. Rice's was for 67 yards, which was the longest pass play of the season for the Chiefs. MVS got open for one, and Mahomes put it on his hands. I mean, like, those plays were there. They were back in the playbook, for everybody saying, oh, Mahomes needs to check down more. Like, that was the problem last week. No, they just need to scheme up some better stuff and get some guys in some one-on-one spots. And the offensive line has to give plays a chance to develop. And that's what happened. It was a better effort from the offensive line that allowed that to happen. Wanya Morris gave up the strip sack. Other than that, didn't notice him. And that's ideal for your rookie left tackle. The interior line, especially against the run, was tremendous, or not against the run, but blocking for the run. Joe Tooney, I thought, was terrific. Creed Humphrey played a really, really good game, his false start aside. That was the bounce back game we were looking for from this offensive line after they got bullied against the Raiders. All of this stuff, everything I think we saw today is the kind of stuff that it feels replicable for this team. And again, limiting mistakes. They did have the mistake that led to a free 7 points, but if they just limit those mistakes, and that was really the big one, and then the drop pass that kept them from maybe scoring 7 and cost them 4 points on the MVS drop on that 3rd and short in the first half. You limit those mistakes, you're going to give yourself a chance to win with this team week in, week out as it gets into nut cutting time in January.
Yeah, and I think for me, the last note on the offense, got to finish drives a little bit better. Don't love, and granted, you could argue if you change one of those, you decide to go for one extra 4th down to try to keep the drive alive, you're going to end up with 30 points in the contest, whatever, 29 points, whatever it could have been. You want to see the offense be able to finish off drives a little bit better, but that's been a trend all year long. And I guess the spin zone of that, if you wanted to counter the point I'm making right now on the fly, is how many drives have the Chiefs had this year where they didn't get anything when they haven't been able to finish off a drive? So would you rather have 6 field goal drives or, 1 touchdown and 5 that ended up in nothing? Well, I mean, quite literally, you would rather have the 6 field goals in that case. So I guess it's kind of a beggars can't be choosers situation. If your defense is going to play that well, you can live with more field goals. But I just look at some of the other teams in the AFC, and I'll be blunt. I look at one other team in the AFC right now. The Bills are playing well. Yes, there are some teams that are going to make the wild card that are going to scrap with you. Sure, it's a 2-horse race in the AFC. The Dolphins are not. I apologize to listener Jason, who's a P1 of the show. He watches along on YouTube all the time. I know he's a big Dolphins fan. I'm sorry, Jason.
Serious.
They're not. They're not winning anything this year. And the Ravens, though, that's the best team in the NFL right now.
Yes.
They are it right now. So if you're looking at a game like that, a hypothetical AFC championship game, for example, you got to win with touchdowns. You're probably not beating that Baltimore team with field goals unless they have just a Tony Banks quarterback level day from Lamar Jackson. Like that's just not going to happen.
And it probably changes how you call the game if you feel like, I believe it was, I'm trying to figure out who it was that made the comment in the it was Vance in the YouTube comments, says, look, that's probably a different looking game with Joe Burrow healthy, but it's a different looking game against a better quarterback. Like your game theory is different. When you're up 2 and you're out of 4th and short and the choice is go up 5 or try and get the first down, try and get 2 yards and see if you can keep the clock moving, keep the ball and maybe score a touchdown, you probably make a different decision on that if you're playing Tua or if you're playing Josh Allen. Or if you're playing Lamar Jackson, you probably make a different decision there. But this was the decision that you could make in this game, and it's a decision you can make with your defense playing as well as it had been playing in the second half. Reed had full trust in that defense and deserved to have full trust in that defense. They were balling out. They were flying to the ball. They had made the necessary adjustment, and it didn't feel realistic. Not at 19-17, not at 22-17, and not at 25-17 that the Bengals were going to go down and score a touchdown. Never felt that way to me.
We've got another comment here from our guy Goober on YouTube who says, I think Burrow would have struggled against that defense. And the game only felt so different because of that strip sack. Without it, the offense for the Bengals wasn't super hot. That's very true as well. And again, nothing but credit to the defense. Struggled a little bit at the start. It was pretty ugly there in the opening drive, opening 2 quarters. But overall, that is now multiple times this season, even after slow starts. Speaking of the Miami Dolphins, I think back to that Dolphins game. They completely shut down that Miami attack in the second half of that game. I'm confident in this defense right now. I'm not worried about that, even with the Raiders game or one of the Raiders games, and then this game, defense starting slow, excuse me. Not worried about them going forward. It's the same thing with this offense. We're at a point of the year where things don't change. We're not learning new things about this group at this point. It's just a matter of getting the best out of them right now. And again, I think that comes down to you got to protect your quarterback and you just rely on the playmakers you've got out there who are doing things for you. If MVS is going to play, he better be blocking. The 4th down conversion where the little sweep out to the right, I think it must have been in the 4th quarter. They had MVS out there and I thought, oh God, this sucks. But he was lined up darn near in line. He was darn near playing tight end on that play. He gets out and blocks. Fine. Lean into the skill players you have and what they are doing well. If that's MVS because he can block, fine. throw the ball to Rice, throw the ball to Kelsey, do anything you can with Pacheco. That's going to be the recipe for this Chiefs offense the rest of the way. We will be off on Monday on New Year's Day, but we will continue breaking this game down and all the other action from around the NFL coming up Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk, January 2nd, our first show of the calendar year. But until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski. This has been your 580 Sports Talk Chiefs Instant Reaction. Kansas City, once again, your AFC West champions with a 25-17 win over the Bengals. We'll talk to you guys